Godzilla, Kong. Everyone knows who they are. If you've never heard of the giant ape and the dinosaur that breathes fire, then you are truly living under a rock. Kong has been an icon for 90 years now, and Godzilla has been a pop culture phenomena for the past 70. While Kong has had a far more rocky history with constant remakes, Godzilla as a character has taken on many roles. From a depiction of the horrors nuclear weapons bring, to a hero and friend to all. From an unstoppable force of nature to a metaphor for survivor's guilt. Godzilla is many things, and it's no wonder the character has continued to survive for all of these years. These characters have played a role in each other's stories since 1962, but they wouldn't cross paths again for 60 years until 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong, a film of questionable quality.
Josh, you have to do something!
Well, drink! Hey, what are you... I gotta die here with you and Silver!
But that film made a ton of money, and here we are in 2024, Godzilla's 70th anniversary, with yet another Godzilla and Kong film, Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, which much like its predecessor is a film of very questionable quality. Before we get started, please consider leaving a like and comment because it does help against the YouTube algorithm. Anyway, back to the video. Jumping right in, Godzilla X Kong follows the title characters as they team up to stop a new monster who threatens the entire world. And yeah, that's it. There really isn't much going on with this film. Whereas the last film had way too many plot lines, it's almost like this one doesn't know what it's trying to do. The stuff with Kong is great in concept, and it even works pretty well in execution. But then Godzilla does absolutely nothing in this film. Godzilla could easily be cut from the film and absolutely nothing would change. And I'd argue it'd make it far more compelling, with Kong facing an opponent seemingly impossible to defeat. Godzilla's role in this film is reduced to the last 20 minutes. Throughout Act 1, he's just sleeping, and then he just starts sucking up radiation for some reason. The excuse the film tries to use is that he's preparing for Skar King's return, but this makes no sense because he isn't willing to go down to the Hollow Earth to fight Skar King himself, and he only goes down there when Mothra convinces him. He kills a few other titans with ease, which is a problem I might make a separate video on, and then he just sleeps. Godzilla is only in this movie because of marketing. He doesn't care about Skar King, so he has no reason to prepare for a threat, which isn't a valid plotline by the way because he isn't active in the story. He could go down there anytime he wants without worrying about Kong because he knows that Kong doesn't care about being alpha. And he knows that Kong only wants to have his home. If you want to keep Godzilla in the movie, cut everything in the middle of the movie because it's a waste of the film's runtime. On his anniversary, Godzilla plays supporting character to Kong, and honestly, he wasn't a great one. Speaking of Kong, he just carries this film. Adam Wingard is a very questionable director, but the one thing I can give him is how well he has characterized Kong. He isn't anything really deep in either of Wingard's films, but he is extremely likable. He feels like a character and not just another monster. Godzilla vs. Kong dipped its toes into more visual storytelling with the monsters, but this film goes all out, and that's some of the best stuff in it. There are scenes with just Kong and other monsters, and you don't need any dialogue or anything to understand what Kong and the others are feeling. There's a bunch of scenes with just Suko and Kong, and the visual storytelling is top tier. Wingard does have a ton of potential as a director when it comes to this stuff specifically. He clearly has a passion for it, and it's by far his strong suit with these films. But he really just needs to get his hands on a far better script because oh my god, this sucks. Skar King in concept could have been the best villain in the Monsterverse, but in execution he is just so lame. The trailers and marketing hype him up as this unstoppable force, but he gets his ass kicked by Kong throughout the entire movie, and he actively avoids Godzilla.
Step off! Step off! Shit! They jumping me! They jumping me!
He never stood a chance against Godzilla because the Monsterverse refuses to show him as weak against anything but a Toho monster. He has Shimo do all of his dirty work. Shimo, I don't know, I think Shimo sounds better. Which, you know, that could work, but making it a 2v2 means he just spends most of his screen time getting beat by Kong, because Shimo's occupied by Godzilla. So he pretty much enslaved the entire Kong species and waged war with Godzilla, and he is obsessed with taking over the surface, and that's about it. We don't know how he enslaved the Kongs, we don't know how he made this crystal thing to control Shimo, we don't know anything about him, which does sound weird to say about a giant monster, but the moment they decided to really start humanizing these monsters back in 2019, it became fair game. As someone who doesn't like Ghidorah's portrayal in the MonsterVerse at all, I honestly think Skar King might be the worst villain in the series so far. While Ghidorah really didn't do much and was done dirty by the writers, he at least had screen presence. Skar King doesn't actually show up for more than half the movie, and when he finally does, he gets the upper hand on Kong for just a moment before Kong overpowers him. Not a good first impression. I don't know with this character. His design is lame, he's barely in the movie, it's just wasted potential. While Shimo is by far my favorite addition to this film, she really doesn't do much. Her design is the best out of the new ones, but that's about all I really have to say for her. Oh yeah, Mothra is in this movie. It's cool to have her back, but she doesn't do much either. Human characters are non-existent, which given how they've been written for the past two films, probably for the better. So we do lose some fun over-the-top characters like Walter Simmons, but we also don't need to force Millie Bobby Brown into the movie for this redundant plotline. That's Godzilla's job this time around. We win some, we lose some. In terms of returning characters, we have Bernie, Gia, and Rebecca Hall's character, who I forgot the name of. Bernie is still Bernie. In this film, he has a lot less to do, not like he was really integral to the previous film anyway. Once his role of cracking the signal is fulfilled, he just kind of tags along for comedy purposes, which this movie is not funny at all. It and the previous two MonsterVerse movies try way too hard to be funny, and they really hold them down because of that. If anything, I'd argue Bernie is worse in this movie, because at least the last movie had the excuse of cutting his motive from the final film. This one just doesn't have anything for him to do. I guess he's petty because Monarch took credit for taking down Mechagodzilla when he was the one who did it, which he didn't, by the way. Other than that, there really isn't anything here. There's a new character that's like a Titan veterinarian or something. He has nothing going for him but comedy relief, so we'll skip over him. The human character's story centers around Gia and her adoptive mother. Gia doesn't feel like she belongs in our world, being the last of the Iwi tribe, while her mother is trying everything in her power to make her feel at home. Most of this development is in the last 40 minutes, so keep that in mind. The script does not do these characters any justice, but the two actresses make this part of the film resonate for the most part, especially Gia's actress. Going back to Kong for a moment, the film dives into his loneliness and how being the last of his kind is affecting him. While Godzilla and Skar King are as bare bones as they come in terms of motives, Kong's motive is fleshed out just enough. This is his fight. Everything he's ever wanted is in front of him, and Skar King is the only thing standing in his way. Most people come for just the fight, so I guess I'll talk about those. And honestly, they are a huge downgrade from Godzilla vs. Kong. While Godzilla vs. Kong has its fair share of dumb moments, it's held up by its amazing set pieces, featuring some of the best action in the MonsterVerse. The Tasman Sea fight in particular standing out as arguably the MonsterVerse's best fight, with the Hong Kong and Mechagodzilla fights being strong in their own ways. This movie just feels so off. The final battle is teased throughout the whole movie, and while Kong is the focus of the entire film, there really isn't much fighting with him. Think of it as another 2014 where everything is saved for the end. The fights sprinkled throughout aren't that good. Kong's fights aren't horrible, but anything with Godzilla is really bad. He fights two other monsters in this film, Scylla and Tiamat. I'm probably pronouncing those wrong, I don't care. Scylla just gets killed immediately, which is really underwhelming, but whatever. They need a monster to show this off.
Everybody is kung fu fighting.
The movie spends time hyping up Tiamat only for Godzilla to kill it immediately with no difficulty, ignoring the fact Godzilla is just invading its home for no reason and brutally murdering it as well. The fight is just underwhelming. Monster vs. Godzilla fights always lean in his favor, and that makes it really boring. A good fight has back and forth action. These fights do not have that. Not to mention Godzilla not being able to just communicate with the other Titans is just stupid. These same monsters followed Ghidorah's orders with no issue, and all of them saw Godzilla kill Ghidorah with ease. Why would they question the guy who killed another guy they're scared of? And why would Godzilla kill all of these Titans who are apparently important to the natural world? Like, wasn't Scylla helping with climate change or something according to King of the Monsters? Godzilla having no mercy whatsoever makes no sense. He doesn't even give the monsters a chance to bow, he just kills them. And I don't want to hear any excuses from the comics. The movies contradict the comics, the shows, and themselves. The comics are barely canon. The fight in Egypt Egypt is probably the best fight in the film. There are a lot of great moments, and for once it feels like these two are on even ground. The final battle is really underwhelming. Not only is the CGI at its worst, but the cinematography is just so weird. There's a lot of close-ups which really don't work. King of the Monsters did the same thing and it didn't work at all. There's no clear view of the action, everything is moving too much and too fast. Not to mention it's really one-sided. Everything the film did to hype up Skar King is thrown away in just 5 minutes. Some final thoughts before I wrap this up. The pacing's all over the place. CGI is tied for worst in the Monsterverse with King of the Monsters. The soundtrack is really forgettable. Mothra is cool despite the fact she doesn't really do anything. Shimo is cool. Kong is cool. Yeah, that's about it. I think a lot of this film's issues can be fixed by cutting Godzilla out of the film. Kong facing 2 opponents stronger than him could make for such a compelling fight. You can still have Mothra to deal with the army, but Kong vs Shimo and Skar King would be great. Make it a fight for the crystal. Godzilla isn't needed for that part anyway. Once Shimo is freed, it can be a 2v1 and you could still have the same finisher. I don't know, this film has a lot of things that work, but a lot of things that don't. Its highs are much higher than Godzilla vs Kong's, but it trades that for everything Godzilla vs Kong does better. It's just fine. I wasn't expecting a good movie. It's Adam Wingard, but I was expecting more fun. Adam wants his hands on a 3rd film already, and I'm just praying that no Toho monsters actually fall into his grasp. Godzilla is such a diverse character, and I'd hate for his monsters to continue to be wasted in the Monsterverse. But I'll have a lot more to say about Godzilla as a character very soon, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to help out with the YouTube algorithm. I try to upload weekly, so you can expect to hear from me frequently. Until then, that's all I got on this film. Kong the New Empire is just alright.